All right, I think we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the session, Mapping a Workflow Strategy. My name is Michael Lax. I'm the Financial Program Strategist here at Laserfiche. It is my pleasure to introduce John Barragan, Chief Operations Officer at Girard Securities, and Claire Maurer, AVP of Advisor Relations at Girard Securities. Girard Securities is an independent broker-dealer based in San Diego, California, and they've been a Laserfiche user for 7 years now. You all saw John at the keynote this morning, and this last year they decided to make the transition from a basic search and retrieval system to a fully automated back office with workflow automation. John and Claire have driven the innovation and automation of traditional broker-dealer processes at Girard and are truly on the cutting edge of technology for broker-dealers. Today they're going to share their experience with making this transition and offering some advice for making this transition to automation within your own organizations. At the end of the session, we're going to ask for questions, so please hold them till then. And we are filming this, so when you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll run the mic to you, and you can ask it that way. With that said, I'd like to introduce John and Claire. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Is this on? Yeah, there we go. Good morning. Well, thank you for your time. So Claire and I will just share a little bit of background and story about our process and what we've gone through and where we're at, and hopefully we'll get some good Q&A going so we can share some of our experiences. I'm sure you'll have some questions. I know everybody in the room is from different industries and not necessarily the investment industry, but there's a lot of similarities, of course, from workflow and how we've done things. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And if you want to move the slide. So you can see here who will get the most out of the presentation based on operational improvements, Laserfiche installation, and of course the business processes and workflow. We'll get right to the meat of this here. If you want to go to the next one. So a little bit of a background on Girard. So Girard is a broker-dealer and registered investment advisory firm that's been in business for about 10 years. We're based in San Diego. It's a family-owned company. Goes back over 20 years. Mr. Richard Woltman is known as the father, if you will, of the independent broker-dealer space. So he's been in the business a very long time. His daughter, Susie Woltman-Tejan, is now our CEO. She actually is in the back there. And we have about 225 advisors. Oh, thank you. And we're also the broker-dealer for United Capital Partners, which is a very large RIA aggregator-type firm that's based in Newport Beach. So we started the transition from paper to digital in 2006. We had what I refer to as a false start. It was before I joined the company. Claire can touch on that a little bit, and I think that that'll be important as a setup to where we're at today. So Claire, if you want to touch on that real quickly.
Sure, absolutely. So we started using Laserfiche. We wanted to get to a point where we could have a paperless document workflow in our office and get away from the stacks of paper that we had. Our initial implementation with Laserfiche, we tried to set up certain workflows. And the way that we went about it was we honestly were too specific in the workflows that we were setting up. So we had set up something that worked really well in one case scenario. And if you're familiar with broker-dealer processing, or probably any processing in general, you have your way that business is processed, but then you have all those exceptions. And the process that we came up with couldn't really accommodate exceptions to one specific process. So we became pretty frustrated with the project that we had, and we kind of took a step back. And we did away with some of the workflow. We kind of decided that workflow maybe didn't work for us. We heard wonderful stories about how it worked for everybody else, but that maybe it just didn't work in our circumstance. Maybe our business processing was too complicated. Maybe there were too many steps involved. And so we really developed a system that was basically a search and retrieve system. And John talks a lot about how it was basically a Windows folder structure. So we were assigning metadata, we were assigning templates, but then our users would just click and drag or copy and paste documents, or we would separate them manually. And there were a lot of faults with the way that we were using it, but that's how basically we've been using it for, we probably used it that way for about 6 years.
So some of the problems that originated from the way they were using the system were we weren't requiring certain data in the meta fields to be in a specific format or even to be required. So as an example, to submit a document and put the client's social security number in there, they could just simply hit the space bar, put a dot in, and then submit it. So what would happen is that they would trick the system, if you will, on the front end, and then when we would get the documents, if in the instance somebody was dragging and dropping it, and we have a huge file structure or directory structure, the document might accidentally, depending on the user, they might let go of the mouse, and then it would get lost forever and we couldn't find it. And so that's not the best service that we could provide to our end user or end client, which is the advisor. So there was a lot of nuances that we were doing that weren't necessarily as efficient as could be, and that was a really big issue for us. In addition to that, from an operational point of view, if I wanted to run any type of reporting, so I want to know how long it takes on average to open up an account at Girard, short of going in and manually looking at when the document was submitted versus when it was actually open. I had no way to do that. With our workflow now, we've designed automated reports that are emailed to our team. So we'll get a report on a weekly basis that shows how long it's taken to open up an account, how many accounts are greater than X number of days, et cetera. So I have now all of these metrics that are pushed to me automatically, and I don't have to run any reports. So the inspiration for improvement, totally true story. If you had asked me a year ago that I'd be standing up here now, I'd tell you that you're crazy. I actually wasn't even going to attend the conference last year because I was fairly new to the company, and I had a lot going on, going up the learning curve, if you will, at Girard. Claire, through her tenacity, had encouraged me to attend. So I attended for a day, and I don't even think I was registered at the time, but I popped into a few sessions. She was in a number of different sessions. The one I happened to walk into was workflow. It was a police department. It was a very basic example of how you could use workflow, and I literally saw how a case was opened, a case was closed, the files moved to a certain directory, and then the criminal did something stupid again, and they reopened the case and it got moved, and so I saw that and we kind of put two and two together, and that's pretty much how it all started. So and then from there it was like we can do way better than this, we can automate, and then of course when we started to get together, we started brainstorming all of these things, and we were just 5 minutes ago brainstorming the next thing that we're going to do, but we fully automated pretty much all of our back office now, and honestly it wasn't that difficult and it didn't take too terribly long with the help of the Laserfiche team. So the identifying the process, the biggest impact, gathering the key stakeholders, I'll let Claire talk a little bit about that.
Sure. One of the things that we had, one of the frustrations we were having before, still working? Yes. That we were having before is, I and some of the other managers would constantly go up to John and say, we're having the same issue again. We're having the same problem again. Documents are being misrouted again. It'd be the same issues over and over again. So we really looked at what our biggest pain points were and how we could solve that using workflow. So if items are consistently not making it to the next step in the process, then let's automate workflow there and figure out what the biggest problems that we're having are and how we could solve those issues. And it really grew from there. We talk about our infamous whiteboard session, and we honestly have a whole wall in one of our conference rooms. It's a glass board you can write on. And so we really got everybody who was involved in the process and some really awesome programmers down in our conference room, pretty much locked ourselves in that room for several days and mapped out every single step of the process that we go through at Girard, from getting the account data, from getting those documents into us, from routing them internally to transferring the assets in. And then went department by department and figured out what everybody's problems were, what everybody's frustrations were, and also what everybody's needs were. And one of the things that I kind of have joked a little bit about with our programming team is that I call them our business processing therapists, because that's what they really helped us do too. We looked at what we were doing, what we needed to do, and whether exactly what we were doing was what was really essential, and where we could add efficiencies, where we could streamline processes, where we could change things around so that it really was more efficient, so that what we were doing, we not necessarily having to do certain things in certain ways, but making sure that what we needed to do was being accomplished, and was being accomplished efficiently and especially accurately.
So I guess one thing to add to that real quickly is that one of the problems we had was, so when an advisor in the field submits documents to us, It could have, say, a new account form. It could have a transfer of assets form if they're leaving one firm and coming to another firm. Could have, say, a money movement request, either to fund, say, an IRA, or maybe they need a wire transfer or check request. And then, of course, you have to have the statement when you are statement attached when you're moving from one firm to another. So that package in itself could be, say, 50 to, in some cases, 100 pieces of paper. What also was happening is that we were splitting apart this package, and one department might miss something because the movement of money or the account transfer documents were at the very end, and so people weren't going through there. So the splitting of documents was an issue too. So now we've come up with a new solution to where we refer to everything as a package. Nothing is split, but it goes from department to department along a workflow, so that when we're done in one area, say opening up the new account, then of course you can't transfer the assets unless you have an account number already established and the account's open. So moving it from one department to another, and then when it's ultimately moved or completed, then what do? Well, then we have workflow that pushes the documents back to the advisor so they don't ever have to touch them again, and we archive them on their behalf and shoot them an email automatically out of the system to say, hey, this account's been open and everything's taken care of. So we can touch on a couple of things here. So moving to search and retrieve a fully automated solution, we touched on that, but I can't underestimate or the importance of what we were going through. The issues of lost documents, the issues of people in the back office not knowing how to use the system appropriately. So getting user buy-in is really important. We have a wide demographic in our office. So we have some folks that are in their 20s, and we have some folks that are in their 60s. And of course, there's different abilities to use this technology in our office. So we had to come up with a solution that was easy for everybody to use. And so we had to remove manual steps from that. And that's one of the things that helped us do that. The amount of users that were tricking the system, if you will, by not putting in metadata in the beginning was troublesome. Because, in our industry, so we're regulated by FINRA and the SEC. And I can tell you that's a whole lot of fun going through audits with them. But, in the olden days, right, you'd have to literally use a wheelbarrow to give them all the documents they needed. Now we can just put it on a CD or DVD, or in the future we'll probably be using another Laserfiche add-in, which is the audit functionality. So we can just give them a restricted login. But staying on topic with this is that, requiring metadata in the field or in the Laserfiche forms before they submit it. So that's the key. So it's really all on them in the upfront process. So the user buy-in and the time intensity of that is that we know that we're going to get some pushback from users, right, when they go to use this new system. And we know that some advisors are going to be thrilled with it. What I mean by that is that, it takes, say, we estimated about, let's say, 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a minute, to submit paperwork to us now in the beginning, whereas before it was 10 seconds. But the difference is that that little bit of time investment for them changes the entire way that they do business with Girard from an automated point of view. Nothing can ever get lost, essentially, and we'll talk a little bit about the end-to-end workflow on that. But the user buy-in component of that is getting the buy-in from our advisors, getting the buy-in from the back office. That actually, the back office wasn't too hard per se. New departments that have never used Laserfiche, that was a little bit difficult, but I think that it's come around pretty quickly. You want to touch on some of this? Yeah.
Sure. So some of the first departments that we added this functionality to was our operations team and our compliance team. And so we'll take a look really quickly at what some of our operations workflow initiatives. So our ops team works with our new accounts team at Girard, and that's where we get the majority of our documents. That's where the most of our paper comes in. We were getting paper from a myriad of sources. So we would get things that came in by mail. We would get things that come in through overnight delivery. We get faxes. We get email documents. We get our reps who scan into our Laserfiche database and manually move documents to us. So what we really did with Laserfiche Forms was consolidate that as the primary point of entry for all documents that come into our system. So our reps can use Laserfiche Forms, put in the metadata there. We have some dynamic fields that guide them through that process, upload their documents, and it goes right to the correct department at Girard. Prior to that, reps have to determine where they're sending their documents. Does this go to operations? Does this go to my manager? Does this go to the registration area? Now workflow determines that automatically. So the reps, once they submit it, they're essentially done with it. Our ops team gets that, and we can assume responsibility for processing those documents. We have some automatic notifications that are built into that process. So we were finding out that you had to spend a lot of time in follow-up with our branch offices. So if somebody's missing a date of birth on their form, well, we have to contact them. We have to hold that form somewhere as in process. Often we'll have to send them a couple reminders. We might not know who in the office to follow up on because we have a lot of branch offices with a lot of support staff who work on different things with a lot of turnover. So now we have a system built into that form where they can specify who they want to receive those follow-up emails and as many emails as they want to on the individual documents. So all of our follow-up is handled electronically through workflow now, so that really alleviates a burden from our home office, and it gives document statuses to the reps as well. So they can log into the system at any time and see exactly where all of their documents are, what the status on all of their documents are, and what the next steps that they need to take, if any, are for completing those items. As John mentioned, we're also going to have usable statistics and performance data on our system so that we can see if there's something that's been pending for 3 days in a certain queue. We can see if there's a transfer that hasn't been processed. We can see if we are overburdened in certain areas and underburdened in others, so we can really have a good idea of exactly what's going on with our system and what our user performance looks like. And we'll be able to get a complete history on all of the packages. So we'll know, for example, if somebody submits a package on this day, prior to having this system, we had to go into a different server to pull that audit reporting data from the audit trail server. Now we have all of that available to us on the package, so that we can see exactly when it was submitted, who touched it and when, what they did, what notes they added. So it really adds a lot of enhanced reporting ability for us so that we can track all of our documents and do that really easily for our processing teams as well as our managers and our executive team as well.
If I could add one component to that, so in the metadata we have the ability to have history. So every time that somebody touches a document or any activity happens from the very beginning of submission all the way through the very end, we have all the tracking of who touched at what time and everything. It's very important from an audit point of view for us to be able to have that data, and we have the ability to not only run reports on it, but to export it and provide it to the regulators. So it's very efficient and really helps on the compliance front too.
Yes, and when we're talking about things for our ops team, we're talking about new account onboarding, we're talking about asset movements, we're talking about money movements, money processing, distributions, check requests, all of that. We're also talking about product approvals, sales pre-approvals that our offices have to do, and we're talking about our electronic blotters. And we might have a slide devoted to that later to go into. Oh, it's right here. So what we do every month, if you're familiar with the broker-dealer industry, all of our reps have to log the checks that they receive, the stock certificates that they receive, signature guarantees that they might use. There are a number of monthly blotters that they're required to do. Several years ago, we were doing that in a paper process. Now we did have an online process they could use through another system that we had, but it was very difficult to track. And so our regional managers were literally having to go rep by rep and check to see if they'd submitted the data, and it was very labor intensive. What we've been able to do through Laserfiche is use Laserfiche forms to capture that data and use workflow to give us some performance tools on that as well. So first off, we record the data when the reps submit it so that they don't have to do anything else beyond that. They scan a check into the system and submit it, and they're done with their blotter requirement for that month. We have reminders built into that system so that reps will get a reminder that they have to submit their blotters. If they don't submit anything, they'll have to go in, they get another reminder. I think it's 5 days prior to the end of the month. If the month carries over and they haven't submitted their blotters, they'll get another reminder, and our commissions department will also get an email so that they can hold commissions on the reps who fail to submit those. We've also built in a nothing to blotter indicator so that if reps actually don't have anything to submit that month, they can fill out a separate form that'll say, I don't have any checks to submit that month, and then that will be recorded in their history as well. We've also been able to develop some really great reporting tools in the back end where we can see who has submitted their blotters. Can we see their blotters? Can we want to pull blotters for a certain date range? We've been able to build custom searches and custom reports into the system that'll be sent to our compliance teams or that we can go in and pull at will to view that information. So we've taken what has been a labor-intensive, frustrating process for our reps, a difficult process to supervise for our home office, and made it something that's automated and something that is really easy for our reps to do now. And when you tell them that they literally have to scan their checks and they're done with their blotters, that's one of our biggest selling points of Laserfiche to our rep base. It's really exciting for them.
It is, and again, one of the other benefits to this whole system is the security. I mean, everybody's been reading about, cybersecurity and all those things. So the way that, Laserfiche obviously is designed is to be able to submit things through a secure environment. So we have advisors and reps across the United States, and it's very important that they have the ability to ensure that the most important thing to them is trust with their clients. Performance is also important, and then, what the cost is, but trust is number one. So we have an end-to-end secure solution for them, and they really appreciate that. So the other thing that we decided to take on was compliance in general, but advertising in particular. So in our business, again, with the regulation, every time something is going to be used with the public, general public, for advertising, it has to be reviewed. So before, things would be emailed to us. Then the compliance team would look at that and they would make all these suggested changes. And those changes are typically the same. There might be 20 specific things that need to be reviewed. It could be the disclosures, it could be the wording, et cetera. So what we did here is that we built a system, because we're trying to get all the documents out of Outlook, trying to get everything into one repository from a compliance point of view, backup, redundancy, et cetera. So we built automated workflow for all of our compliance approvals. So we created a template document, so like there's, say, 20 items, and those 20 items are the most common used, and then we have HTML-based emails that were written on what they need to do, automated. So as an example, if they need to change a disclosure that's on there, change a number of items that might refer to the wording, or what's the general use of this. So you can't use it with elderly clients, but you can use it with this group. So all of that's been pretty much automated, and the submission and review is all automated and tracked. So again, from that, being able to document for FINRA that, okay, well, this advisor submitted this on this day, we rejected it, it went back to them, they made these changes. So we have now archived automatically, end-to-end, every single step of that process, so we know what's the final version, and there's no dispute between us and the advisor on what they're able to use. So it's pretty slick, all done again through Laserfiche in the forms process. Go ahead if you want to take it.
Sure. So in conclusion, some of the things that were really beneficial to us in going through this process was, one, I know a lot of people mentioned it during the keynote this morning, but making sure that all of the key players in your organization are on board, that was really essential for us. And we made sure to include the people who are going to know the most about those processes, and really include them on the business development decisions, and really consult with them to find out not only what we thought they needed, but exactly what they needed and exactly what they did day to day. And we've kept them in the loop throughout the process, throughout the testing. We've involved all the users to get their feedback. So even if it's just a person who's scanning checks, we want to make sure that they understand that the system that they're getting is something that they're invested in. It's something that's really going to meet their needs. So that was really essential for us. We also had a great team. We've worked with a lot of the people here at Laserfiche as well. Jonathan Powers in the back over there. Really, we talk about what we've done, but he took all of our ideas and awesome things and made them a reality. So having the right people on the team was really essential for us. And staying in contact, too. We have 2 calls a week about this project to make sure that at every stage in the development, it's still exactly what we need. I can't tell you how many times I've sent an email or gotten on the call and said, actually, we found out something new that we didn't know. So our project has evolved, and we've been able to take a look at exactly what we need, exactly what's going to make the most sense, and make some really important decisions about that. One of the things that's been really great for me, too, has been the Laserfiche community. If you haven't taken a look at their certified professional program, I definitely recommend it. It's been really great to do some of those courses and find out exactly what Laserfiche can do. And it really gives you some great ideas and helps you be really knowledgeable about the system that you're building, so that when you're sitting in a meeting and you say, it'd be great if Laserfiche can do that, you can say, it can, and here's how we can do it, and here's how we can implement those strategies. And
I guess just one other thing to add real quickly before we go to Q&A is that don't be afraid, whatever process you think you want to automate, and it might seem cumbersome in the beginning. I mean, we thought a lot of this was not going to be possible, but getting the right players involved and the consultants involved was really key. I won't say that it was necessarily easy, but it was easier than I thought it would be. And then again, today is a huge success day for us. This morning, for the first time, actually, we just implemented DocuSign as well. So we had the first submission of a fully paperless business to us, where we use Redtail technology. It's a CRM. It's very similar to Salesforce if you're not familiar to it. But so you can open up your CRM, populate through Laser App Anywhere all of the client data from the CRM into the forms, which has DocuSign enabled in it, pushes it directly to Laserfiche, goes to our office. So we can now, essentially within 24 hours, without having to have duplicate entry, open up accounts for our advisors. And in 2014 initiative will be hopefully to be able to push that data from Laserfiche back to the CRM record and link it to the client record directly, so they don't have to do that as a secondary step. So we're very excited, and with that, I guess we'll open up to some Q&A.
Thank you so much, John and Claire. Let's give them a round of applause. So if anyone has any questions, raise your hand, and I'll run the mic over to you. Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your training process for your staff? You mentioned you had wide demographics, so what worked well? Did you have written procedures that you provided to them? Just talk a little bit about your training process.
Well, actually, that's a good question. And just recently, the conversation around written procedures has come up a little bit more and more. So we do a number of things. So we have a breakdown of two users, if you will. We have the back office, and then we also have the advisors. And on the advisor side, and their assistants for that matter, because they're the ones that are doing most of the work with this system, they tend to be on the younger side. But what we've done is for the field, we do a lot of webinars. So every time a new advisor joins us, or even an existing advisor, if they need training, we do usually a 1-hour webinar or what have you on how to use Laserfiche. And Claire and her team are the ones that do that. We're working on, with all of the new technology that we have, doing some deeper training. We're going to have a lot more documentation to provide them with some of the new workflows and things of that nature. But I would say that in general, what we've also tried to do is the way we were using Laserfiche was much more cumbersome and complicated. Now, again, essentially, once an advisor or their assistant has filled out, let's say, half a dozen to a dozen key fields through forms, and they submit it, believe it or not, that's all they have to know about Laserfiche. They don't actually have to do anything else. It's the back office. But specific to your question, the back office, we have work groups, so they're in groups of 4. So there's a lot of communication amongst those teams about how to use Laserfiche. So if somebody gets stuck, then there's something that one of the other users can help them with. We've also encouraged all of the teams to get Laserfiche certifications, and surprisingly, a lot of them have done it on their own. So we haven't had any issues where we've had to have major documentation. But again, as a smaller company, that's probably not as appropriate as a company that's got 1,000 employees.
Yes.
Hi. Just maybe 2 questions. I heard you say Laserfiche forms. I'm kind of curious about what Laserfiche components you all are using. And then I guess more specific, how do your reps, I hear that they use forms to put documents in. Do they also look at documents, and what do they use to do that, if they can use that?
So yes, our reps have full access, well, not full access, but our reps have access to Laserfiche. And so they have both the desktop version of Laserfiche installed. We have at least one desktop application installed in every branch office. And then they also have access to Laserfiche web if they want to use that as well. Some of our reps have multiple Laserfiche installations on their offices. Our reps submit documents to Laserfiche. So with this new development that we've done, they'll be using Laserfiche forms, but in the past they've done Laserfiche direct scanning, importing documents into Laserfiche. They've kind of submitted it however they wanted to. So our reps do have a Laserfiche license that they use to access the system, and so once they send their documents to us, they can log into Laserfiche to follow up on those documents. They do have their archive folders in there, and so one of the other things that we've been able to do is allow our reps to be completely paperless as well. So in addition to back scanning all of our documents onto Laserfiche at our home office, some of our branch offices have been able to back scan all of their documents into Laserfiche as well. They do go through an audit process with our compliance department, and we do certify them to then become a paperless office. And then once they've scanned their items to Laserfiche for archiving, they can destroy their paper. But they do go through a process with us to be approved for that.
So one of the other things that we've done with the Rio version is that we used to allow them to have a directory structure that they could have, say, client last name, first name, et cetera, and then a subdirectory with, say, the type of account, an IRA, joint account, et cetera. With the new workflow automation that we've done, they can still create their own directories in there, but from a workflow point of view, where all of the documents go, we now consider it a package and it gets a unique identifier. So we've had to retrain them to think differently in that instead of going in and looking for, Jane Smith, IRA, and going specifically to that directory, now we have custom searches, template searches that we have created for them, and that they can go in and use any of the data, again, from that very first step, that when they submitted the documents to find these things. So that's been a unique change. Some people honestly have not cared, and others have been a little bit upset about that. But the great thing is that we can create like an archive folder for them and move all of the documents from the old way that they were doing it into the repository. That's another subject on metadata and all of that, but they've been generally okay with it.
And so the systems that we use in Laserfiche, we use Laserfiche Forms, and then we use Laserfiche Workflow. So our office at Girard, then when we move the documents around in Laserfiche, we're changing fields on the template that then initiates the workflow process. So one department might change their process to approved, and that'll then move the document to the next department. We also have a way for users to select which document they want to move it to. So if I have a document with my team in new accounts and I want to move it to account transfers, there's a way for me to do that as well. So we have still kept in the part that's user specific, and so that our processors can make intuitive decisions about how to route those documents, but we've also been able to put certain processes in the workflow in place so that we can restrict certain things from happening. So for example, in John's example earlier, where maybe people were forgetting to separate the transfer form and route that to transfers. We now have a safeguard in place where transfer is now a separate document, and nobody can complete the whole form package without completing the transfer. So we still have people routing documents based on their knowledge of our workflow processes and the business processing that we do, but we've been able to implement workflow strategies to make sure that those routing decisions are more accurate and more efficient and more automatic.
When you say that you are tracking all the activities with the document, who moved it, who touched it last, and the date and the time, do you mean with the audit trail software? You are looking that up, or is there another way you're doing that?
So what we're doing with that one is that we're using the history notes that are within the metadata itself. And so there's a whole log that, I don't know if it's built into the system. JPO, can you maybe touch on that? Yeah. Okay.
Workflow.
Yeah.
Workflow watches anytime anybody does anything on a document or a package, you should say, and then that triggers workflow. Workflow says who did it, when did they do it, what did they do, and it adds that to a multiple value field, which is the history field John's talking about. Yeah. So then you have like a custom audit trail that's just on that folder, and it goes as long as it needs to.
Yeah.
On that custom field you created, is that a hidden field for them to track the document, or anybody can see that field?
It could totally be hidden. We've chosen definitely not to make it hidden. We want to make it visible about both to the rep who submitted it, what's happening to your package, and also to Girard, who touched this package, when was it submitted, how long have we been working on it, who all's done what, all that kind of stuff.
So then you're not using audit trail, you're just using the workflow to manage this.
Audit trail as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Audit trail is like the shotgun approach. Right?
Okay.
It's like it captures every tiny little bitty thing, but there's very little context
Yeah.
that it provides. It doesn't have any of Girard's understanding of like the financial world that they're in, and the fact that it's a package and all that stuff. We built like a custom audit trail just for Girard's package.
Yeah. We elected to have transparency with the workflow. So from a service point of view, we're huge. I mean, in our business, the only thing that we really have that differentiates us from all of our other competitors is service. I mean, you know, everybody pretty much can do the same thing, but service is really a key differentiator. So we want the offices to be able to see where it is, what's happened with it, and we elected to just make that transparent to them. Yeah.
From the back office standpoint, did you build in a series of escalation steps if a step gets stuck with someone?
Yes, and so that falls into the process that we have where you can make intentional decisions about those documents. We did this in two ways. We do have a route to manager option, so we can route it to a rep supervisor if we need to. And then we also have the ability for anybody on any of our teams to route to their manager too. So anybody on my team can choose my name as a point of escalation and route that item to me for processing, and it'll then show up in my queue, and that exists for all of our teams at Girard. We also do have manager notifications in some of our reporting, so that if anything has been sitting in a queue for more than, say, 5 days, our manager team is going to be notified about that. So right now, if I want to find out what my team is doing, I have access to their folders and I can go in there, but I have to really dig kind of deep to find out, has no action been taken on this? Is there a reason this item is in here? It's very cumbersome to follow up and see what the status is on every item, and if it's something that they haven't been processing or if it's something that's actually pending for a very good reason. And so the system that we have now with the reporting capability will let you know if there's anything that you need to be aware of and follow up with your team on as well, that maybe they haven't brought to your attention yet. And then John and our executive team will be getting higher level views rather than just different teams within the organization. They'll get a monthly report too about the different performances in the system and in each of our workflow tracks.
Great presentation. Thanks for sharing your success story and some learning curves. My question pertains to a little bit of the implementation and project management perspective. It's a two-part question. So the first question pertains to how big was the team size? How long did it take? And how much of it was internal? How much was it consultant and, Laserfiche assisted? The second part is, if you had to do the same project all over again, would you have changed anything to get the same end result? Any learning curves or any curveballs you could have avoided in the process?
I'll take the first one. Take the second part. So for the first part of the question, as far as the team size and the length of the project, so from a Laserfiche point of view, using their consultants, the team varied in size, but for the most part, when we did the initial whiteboard session, I think that we had 4, maybe 5 folks from Laserfiche, and then we had all the respective department heads from our company. So we literally packed a conference room. We have a big, TV in there with a computer hooked up to it and all the whiteboards. And I mean, we literally holed up for 3 days, ordered out. We didn't take a break. I mean, we just worked through, and in that time period is what we pretty much came up with the core of what we wanted. Then, of course, the team, the Laserfiche consultant team, had to do a write-up on this, and they provided us, I can't remember if it was 100 or 200 pages. Do you remember what it was? A write-up with all of the workflow. It was quite long. And you funny story on this is that I actually would schedule meetings, and I'd say, okay, we're going to go through this document, and they thought, we're going to go through the document, and I was like, no, we're literally going to read each page together. And so I actually, every page we read together, and we went and we highlighted everything, and it was cumbersome, but we spent a fair amount of money on this, and it was critical to get it right in the beginning. In the keynote earlier, I mean, everybody mentioned, right, getting the setup correctly, getting the repositories correct, so that's very important. As far as the home office goes, the teams varied, but we had all of the appropriate respective department heads in there. That was key. And then as far as the length of the project, because of all the programming, all the things that we had to do there, the implementation, was say roughly, let's say 9 months, 10 months or so, all in. We also had our IT team in place because we had to create a development environment separate from our live environment. We had to put the new version of the software on there, so we had to, set up a remote access for their team and ours as well. So nothing was happening in our existing repository. second part of that question.
For the second part, if we would have done anything differently, we would have done it 7 years sooner, is all I can say. The process has been honestly great. It's been really great to go through our processes and find out exactly what we're doing, what might not be efficient, what maybe people don't even know that you're doing. So we really found out a lot about exactly what everybody's doing at Girard, what all of our teams are doing, what all of those processes are, what the needs are. And one of my big concerns going into it was that it really wouldn't work for us, that we just had some really complex processes, that we had too many moving parts, and that it was something that was just going to be too much. And it wasn't at all. So we really were able to simplify things, take a look at what we were doing. I've never been one for whiteboarding and diagramming, but you have to do it. It's amazing what you'll learn when you do it. So it was a huge learning experience for me, but one that I don't think I would change it, except wish that we did it a lot sooner, because it's been absolutely great, and we're really excited for where we are now.
Yes, in the back.
Can you speak upon how or what you use for client reporting, and have you developed any kind of workflow to get those deliverables to clients?
Could you be a little bit more specific on what your expectation would be of that?
So do you deliver quarterly reports to clients? Are they in-house, or is that, no, it's not in-house?
Okay. Yeah, so from a reporting point of view, for anything related to the client, we rely upon our clearing firms. We're dual clearing with National Financial, which is a division of Fidelity Investments, and Pershing, division of Bank of New York Mellon. We also have some other relationships with outside money managers, et cetera. We have separate software for that does all of the reporting, so we don't do any reporting at all. That's done at the clearing firm or at the respective money manager level. We do use third-party programs to aggregate all that together, programs such as Allbridge, DST Vision Professional, et cetera, that do all of that, the aggregation from a number of different providers. We have a lot of data feeds for that, but we do none of that, and nor do we store any of that data within Laserfiche, because it's housed elsewhere on the clearing firm platforms.
Just to follow up on that reporting section, so for the data that you're actually giving for the managers to report by, what did you use the data? How did you get the data out of there to report? Did you use a third-party reporting tool, or was it just basically, I mean, can you speak to that?
Sure, the data out of the system for the reports for the managers.
You give reporting to say, hey, the status of this is this, and you give them statistics and
Sure. No, it was all
things?
custom done within Laserfiche using workflow. So it looks for specific metadata when it was submitted, or what the status is, and so it's a little bit more complicated, but kind of some if-thens, and if it's been in a queue for X number of days, then it'll report on that. And then it'll shoot off an email to the respective department. But it's all done through the metadata, essentially, within our Laserfiche repository. Creates the reports. There was a lot of custom programming for that. But it was very critical to have these dashboard metrics. And I can see where this is version 1.0 of it, but we'll be able to do a better job and across multiple departments as well. So we really strive to get accounts open within 24 hours. Our kind of written rule is 48 hours. Compliance tries to turn around advertising reviews and a number of other things that they do within 24 hours. But there are instances and there are reasons why an account might be in a queue for, say, 2 weeks or longer sometimes, just due to a variety of reasons. And those are outliers, but we want to know that, on average, we're providing the best service to our advisors, and that's where that data really comes in.
You kind of answered the question, what kind of metrics are you taking on the processes? Are you, on the amount of time that it takes to process? But those metrics, are those gathered by the custom reporting that you were talking about?
Yes, so those are gathered by workflow. So in the examples of what we're talking about, if our team gets a distribution request, for example, we can track on our clearing system if that's been submitted and maybe just not approved for some reason, or if the account hasn't been funded. We have tools for the actual cash management of our accounts, and all of our databases outside of Laserfiche. But if our operations manager wants to see, maybe there's a distribution request that's come in that hasn't been submitted, that's a different problem, and that's what Laserfiche is tracking for us, to make sure that we actually get our part of it done. And so those are the performance analytics that we're talking about, to make sure that our teams are responsible for what they've received. So all of our documents that come in, from new account opening to cash management to transfers, making sure that, and new business onboarding, is making sure that we finish our step in the process. Because when our reps follow up with us, we never want to have to say, oh, we missed that document. You submitted everything on time, your client did everything right, the assets would have transferred, but we missed it. That's what this is helping us avoid. It's ensuring that once those things come in, that we're accountable for processing them. We make it completely transparent to a rep so they can see how long we're taking, they can see exactly what they're doing with their documents. They never have to worry that when they send something to our firm that it went into a black hole and nobody's looked at it. They can see exactly what's going on with those.
I'll give you a quick real-life example. So in the old system, we had somebody, a rep, that had submitted a document. They'd put it in manually, moved it into the wrong folder. They'd actually moved it into their, what we call the TBF folder, their to-be-filed folder, which you wouldn't do. That's when it gets routed back. Months went by. It was the rep's fault, but they wanted to know why the account wasn't opened. And so we couldn't find the documents. So they had routed it wrong. Then when we finally found out where the document was and what had happened, we then initiated one part of that process, which is to open up the account and then move the money. But then another team actually, because it was a managed account, needed to then essentially move the money and then and notify the third-party manager to get the assets invested. And so it all started off with the wrong process in the beginning with the advisor, but in all honesty, we made some internal mistakes on that. And then so the end result of this is that the amount of the money was never invested. It was like 4 months. The markets had gone up. The client was upset. They left, transferred their account out, and essentially, with the workflow automation that we have right now, it's virtually impossible that could happen today, because the rep is forced to put the key data in the beginning. It's forced to route to the right departments. We have all the audit trails. You can't go from one department to, and it needs to be moved to another department. And then, of course, when it's done, they're notified, so they have the automatic notifications. So having a manual processes, in my opinion, within Laserfiche is very dangerous as opposed to automation.
Follow up. Did you have metrics as you started the process of how many days it took to process an application and things like that? And then if you did, how did they improve after you saw the process?
Well, we had a rough estimate, and we've actually done a pretty good job because Claire leads that department. So I mean, we would know on average. I couldn't tell you if it was 1.4 days or anything like that. We had a general idea, but as we're growing pretty rapidly right now. Approximately 20% a year. So I mean, as we're bringing people on, it's going to be more and more important. But we had a general sense. We had some other dashboard metrics for our clearing firms, but not specific to our departments. And so now we have that for every department.
Yes, and just to not, this won't give exact timelines, but just to look at the processes. When I started with Girard, we were working in new accounts, you would get your paper in from the branch office, and it would sit on your desk until you're ready to process it. And so the rep either had to fax it, which is fast, but it takes time, or they had to overnight it, which was pretty fast, or they had to regular mail it. So we were constantly waiting for a day or more to get some paperwork into the offices sometimes. And then once you opened the account, you had to save your transfers, and maybe you got up right away and walked over to our transfer department. Maybe you waited till you had 5 or 10. With Laserfiche now, our reps, they submit it to us, and if we're on our end and the rep's on their end, before they can even say, did you receive it, we have it. It's instantaneous, and it's so secure. For them to send it to us that way. It's not even sitting in an email queue that you have to import. It just comes right into Laserfiche. Our team can do our part on it. Anything that we send to a third party, we have different ways of getting that out of Laserfiche to send to them. And anything that we route internally, you just route to the next folder. So you're not even waiting to get up and walk over to our transfer team or to walk over to our regional management team. You just push it and they have it and they can start working on it, and you can see what they're doing on it as well.
So I've estimated that with not only the workflow, but also with mobile check deposit that we have now, not only can an account be opened and funded within a day, but I've estimated that we are saving the advisors and reps about $500,000 a year in overnight mail, et cetera, because you're not allowed to take custody of client funds, so they have to be submitted right away within the same day or the next day. So essentially that now, in theory, is gone away. So it's really a win-win across the board.
I just want to make sure that we have clarification on one point. You've used the term custom a lot.
Oh, okay. Custom to us, anyway.
Yeah. Jonathan, it's not custom programming, correct?
Very little custom programming for you guys. It's entirely custom in the sense that the workflows that we built are custom to Girard.
Yeah.
But we use 99% of the work that was done for Girard is using out-of-the-box Laserfiche workflow activities.
Yeah.
You drag them, you drop them, you configure them, you don't have to know code at all. 1% of what we did probably is just custom code.
Our group is proud of the fact that we take an off-the-shelf product and customize it for the client's specific needs.
Yeah.
But we're not writing code. That would kind of defeat the purpose.
Yeah. For forms, there was some HTML stuff that needed to be done, for the business to be submitted. And I will say this, Jonathan and his team showed us the workflow that was done, and it's really impressive when you see all the steps that they had to take into consideration. So from an initial meeting to the document to then the implementation and actually seeing it work, for us, again, if we had to do anything over again, it would just have been to do it earlier.
Any more questions? Yes.
Do you feel that that initial start and fail really helped you guys to springboard on when you were going to use it for workflow and then you decided not to? Do you think that that really helped you to take a step back and then move forward in a positive direction?
Not really, because all that we kind of came away from it at the start was that it wasn't going to work, and I really went into it thinking maybe it doesn't work for broker-dealer firms. Maybe we have too many processes. Maybe we're trying to do something too advanced, and so we really didn't think workflow could work for us. At least I didn't back when we first started. And so we kind of just kept using Laserfiche the way that we were. And then once I did the CPP course and saw exactly what it could do, then I kept saying, we have to take another look at this. We have to take another look at this. And then John let us take another look at it.
So I've only been with the company about 1.5 years. Claire's been there much longer, so she saw the initial attempt at the implementation. When I came in, I looked at all the systems and everything, and frankly, I kind of trashed the way that we were doing things, and I don't think Claire liked me too much in the very beginning, but we actually have become, kindred spirits with Laserfiche, and I think that, from my point of view, I had no fear, essentially, of failure on the project. I came to the conference, which really was eye-opening, and then I took that away. We had compared notes, but I did a fair amount of research, reading a lot of documents on the Laserfiche website, just kind of thinking through what we could do. And so I think a lot of that research kind of built our confidence. The product's come a long way as well. So from our point of view, we just knew that we could do a better job. And there was really no going back for us.
I think we have time for one more question. Or two. I see two hands.
Hi, my question is about your implementation of the forms. Because I understand, like, when you're opening a new account, there's a lot of validation, a lot of checking and compliance and all of that. How complex was the form in terms of when you first implemented it? And did you start with, with a simple form, it's a submission, validation is compliance opens it, we'll eyeball it first, and then if that works, then let's progress into the actual automating of the validation. For example, let's say, is it a valid zip code, for example, or is it a valid address that's in there? Yeah. How did you progress in that?
Sure, let me give some clarification on that. So when we're using forms to open up accounts, we don't use forms for the entire new account process, the new account form itself, or the IRA account application. They're just submitting, say, it depends on the type of account and a number of things, but say 6 to 12 pieces of data. Now there's some validation in there, like email address validation, rep code validation. But they're attaching an electronic document that contains all of that. So it's not like they're doing a full-blown client onboarding through forms. It's possible, and that's something that we'll be talking about, is how we can take that data. There's a whole another topic on that of what we want to do. But essentially, that's where we're going to go with this, especially with electronic signatures, is I can see where we can do that whole process online. But currently now, no, it's just a handful of fields that we're collecting, and then they're attaching the documents and submitting it into workflow. Did I answer your question correctly?
We also use Redtail. Can you elaborate on the very end of the workflow, how you get that to go back into the CRM?
Well, no, that's it's not actually happening right now. What I had mentioned earlier is that that's going to be the next phase. That's definitely on my 2014 list to be able to do. I'd like to see that happen. The reason is that if we could do that, much like in Redtail right now, you can have, so you have Outlook email, and then you can do this process called journaling, so it'll link to the client record. So when you go pull up, say, Jane Smith's account, you can see every communication that's been done respective to that client linked to the record. You can also attach documents to it. I know it can be done. We just haven't done it yet, but it's on my list to where when we push the documents back to the advisor in their Laserfiche repository, we want to also be able to link it back to the client record, and it's something I want to explore.
If I could just finish that. Both my group internally at Laserfiche and some of our top bars in this specific vertical market have developed some expertise in embedding what we call an iframe at the bottom of the contact screen in Redtail, in Juncture, and other applications that you find, CRM applications that you find in the market, so that at the conclusion of the new account opening process, there's a window into that rep's Laserfiche environment that will display the new account packet when it's completely approved and such. And I know that's where John wants to take this, and manufacturer to manufacturer. I know Brian over at Redtail, as well as Greg Friedman and others, and that's kind of on the horizon. Just like this past year, the Laser App and DocuSign became feature sets of our product. On the horizon, we're exploring the way for our companies to work together in a more integrated fashion at the direction of folks like John.
And I will just add before, in terms of those integrating with other partners, work with your VAR on that. And we have our PDP marketplace that hosts this integrations, and the groups that have built them, if they're on the PDP marketplace, do sell them to others. So if your VAR has built the integration or not, it's most likely that they can also implement it for you via the PDP marketplace. With that said, thank you so much, John and Claire. Let's give them all another. If you have more questions, feel free to come up. Lunch is in Platinum 5 and 6, and have a wonderful rest of your day.